Welcome, 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 and welcome back to another session of Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. I'm Michelle Portier, your host of the hour, and I have with me here today a very, very, very special guest. And yes, I put an extra very in there because he is not only a colleague and a fellow former serviceman, but a fellow veteran. He's also a dear friend of mine. And today we're going to go on a journey of Mr. Bruce Thompson's A Marine's Journey. And so I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I want to give a very special thank you to Bruce Thompson for coming on today to share with us some insights that he's had on this journey called life. So, without further ado, I want to introduce to you all um, Mr. Bruce Thompson. Bruce, thank you so much for joining us today and for agreeing to come on and allowing me to kind of pick your brain.
Oh, Michelle, thank you for having me. I always enjoy our conversations.
Always, always a pleasure. And so we're just going to jump right into it. So, for my listening audience, Bruce, AKA Batman, and I'm sure you're going to expound on that later. It was very interesting when I heard, that AKA what that Batman went. So, you're in for a treat. So, for my listening audience, Bruce, tell us a little bit more about who Bruce is personally and professionally.
All right. Um, Personally, I'm a Marine veteran. I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida. I've moved here just over 3 years ago. We'd never lived here before in our lives, but we were in San Diego, and uh, I said enough was enough. I had to get out of California and the crowdedness and everything. And we looked on a couple maps, had a couple discussions. And even though we'd never been here before, we didn't know anybody. We said we're moving to Jacksonville. It's
Right.
been 3 years, no regrets whatsoever. And we always said that when we got to our permanent home, stopped all the PCS thing, all those different moves every 2 to 3 years, that
Right.
we'd be pillars of our community, that we'd grow roots. Uh, and so that's really who I am and what we believe. Uh, and professionally, I tell you, it's pretty similar. The two of them are really connected. Uh, I have a passion to continue to serve. I
Hmm.
served, just shy of 24 years in the military, and throughout, it was always a passion to help others. You know, it wasn't about celebrating, myself. It was about celebrating uh, those Marines and sailors that worked with me, of getting them promoted, getting them recognized, to see them achieve something they didn't think was possible.
Right.
So, as I was making the transition myself, it was just natural of that's something that has to be a part of what I do next.
Right.
And so, with that, I had that first year out struggle like many transitioning service members do. And what it was is I had never stepped back to figure out, what are my values? What are those things that I place highest among all?
Right.
I took one job, it was all about money. And let me tell you, I'm one of those success stories everyone wants to hear about that walks out to a six-figure job. I did it. I left
Hmm.
after 4 weeks because that job was all about money. I was
Mm.
about family. Uh, that job, I worked second shift, 2 p.m. to midnight. By the time I got up in the morning, my wife was already at work. By the time I came home at night, she was already sleeping. And that just doesn't work. Neither is you know, my stronghold, the person who keeps me straight, keeps me sane, and that drive behind me. Uh,
Right.
so sorry guys, you got the short end of the stick. You got me, not Neela's. So maybe next time, Neela.
Right.
Uh,
Well,
but
I beg to differ on that.
but yeah, and so we kind of came out here, and when I found that true kind of calling, I started teaching uh, transitioning service members and their spouses how to go through the transition.
Right.
And I did that as part of the Department of Labor Employment Workshop Facilitator for 2.5 years.
Hmm.
And they got to the point when I was here in Jacksonville saying, I can't put 3 whole days standing on in front of the class teaching because there's so many other things happening in this huge veteran community. So I've never stopped helping, but I've done it in different ways.
Right,
And
right.
so I volunteer with many different organizations. Uh, I mentor um, quite a few different people. Uh, you know, Today on veterati.com, which is a awesome uh, military veteran spouses mentorship website that was built by vets for vets. I I had my 400th call,
Hmm.
so I am now the second person that reached that mark. Uh,
Wow.
so it shows that um, one that many people wanted to talk to me about transition or where they were, uh, but it's just that ability to have a phone call with somebody for 45, 60 minutes, and usually it's a complete stranger.
Hmm.
Yes, they share a military background, but it's not someone I've talked to before, so that's kind of unique. And to make that connection and to be able to help someone along, that's for me, that's what it's about. you know
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you again for agreeing to come on and share with us today. I first want to thank you again for your service and how you continue to serve. And something that I think that resonated with me, and I think it's very important, is how, because I've always said this, that you cannot separate the personal from the professional. It's a part of who you are and how you've incorporated that into all that you do in your heart to continue to serve because you truly are a servant at heart. And for those of you that are tuning in today and you don't know him, this is the man that you want to get to know and connect with. So, his information is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So make sure you reach out and connect with him because he is the one you want to know. So thank you again, Bruce, for your passion, for your heart of servitude to want to serve our country and in what I believe is one of the most challenging branches of service to serve in as a Marine. You truly have to have a heart for service and just a heart, period, to be able to survive that. Just my own personal thoughts. And so I'm super excited about the journey that we're going to go on today and all that I've learned and gleaned and the things that you shared with me and that I've learned just being your friend and a colleague. So thank you so much. And so, what I want to start off with is what led you on the path that you're on. We talked about this when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, about how you ended up where you are and what led to that, and which was the inspiration for me to want to come on and just kind of chop it up with you today. So, what led you on this path that you're on, and what brought you to this place that you're at?
so Neil and I thought about retiring back when we were in Kansas City. You
Mhm.
know, my really my only duty station uh, in the United States that wasn't in California. Uh, I, I I got to spend a lot of time in Southern California where I was raised, and we started looking at it and we're like, it's about that time. They always tell you, when it's your time to get out of service, and we found a few houses and we were at that. It's either uh, commit or won't commit, and we just said, I'm a little old broken with the Marine Corps years on me. Uh, so we're like, I don't want to be in the snow. Kansas City was a wonderful place, wonderful people. So we did one more tour, which took us back out to San Diego, Camp Pendleton, California. And while we were there, it was I know I'm getting out. I know this is that last tour for me. And once you kind of get in that mindset, and I'd already started transition training, you know, it was never about you know the look at me. We military, we do teams. It's look what we did. You know, Never is it I. The only time it's I is when something doesn't go right, and then
Mhm.
it's my fault. It's my responsibility. Uh, and that's why we're higher up in rank, so we can put that blame on ourselves.
Mhm.
And it was all about taking care of of my Marines, my sailors. You know, uh, my kids are older, so um, my daughters would bring people over to the house, whether that was in high school, whether that was people that she hung out with uh, when she was in her 20s. So fellow service members would come over, and she's like, "You're going to sit down. You're going to talk to my dad, and he's going to tell you about this." Uh, and so it was whether it was education, getting out, reenlisting, figuring out what was next, and even some marriage counseling. If Are you sure you're ready for this? You know, do they know what they're getting into? You know,
Right.
because so many of us don't know, uh, and then we just figure it out once we're thrown to the wolves,
Well,
uh, and that's something that uh, it still needs to be addressed, but we're we're getting better at all these things,
yeah.
and that's where I loved. I had a passion for it. So as I said earlier, I got out. I got a job immediately. I used one of those military headhunters, and they did great. It was just at 4 week mark, I knew it wasn't for me.
Hmm.
Uh, and I also kind of had an interview with another company. So I had a contingent offer to do something else that was in line with my MBA in human resource management. It was going to keep me in Southern California. It it was doing those things that I had a passion for. It was
Hmm.
helping finding people employment. You know, and especially the veteran in the military uh, spouses. It was, hey, I if we get these contracts, I'll be able to really step it up and you know do as much military and veteran hiring and spouses as possible. Well, so I moved on to that one, which made it easier to walk away from the first job. So 9 months into that, congratulations, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. You didn't get the contracts, so
Oh,
contingent offer just went poof. So I kind of spent like 6 weeks in my house and letting the PTSD, letting some of that depression, anxiety just uh, take over. And after spending that time, Neela said, "Hey, you got to get out of the house and do something."
hmm.
And finally, I said, "Fine, I'll get out of the house a couple days a week." So I went golfing. Uh, Went to the executive golf course. So a bunch of par 3 holes, and maybe I think there was 2 par 4s. I'd show up. I put my earbuds in. They knew me, so I'd walk in, sign for my cart, never have to talk to anybody. Uh,
Hmm.
I know it's a par 3, but I got bad back, bad knees, so I wasn't walking it. I made sure that I had my cart, and again, I'd play 18 to 36 holes. Um, Probably not talk to a soul the whole time I was out there. Uh, I don't take score because that would make it ugly and not worthwhile. But I just enjoy the fun of being on the course. So after about a week of that, Neela said, "Not what I meant.
Right.
You need to go out there and do something where you're interacting with others, where you're having conversations, you know,
Exactly.
not living in your own little world." And I was like, "But I don't like people." And she laughed at me and said, "Yeah, you do. Don't give me that." And so I went out and I applied for some other jobs. Lo and behold, federal hiring freeze showed up and took 2 of the 3 of them away. And so I ended up doing the Department of Labor facilitator role, like I mentioned earlier, and it just took off. Each week I had 35 to 50 people that were in there, uh, and all at some stage of transition.
Hmm.
Almost all of them at the stage of not having a clue what transition meant, not having planned for it, and it just became a how are we letting people get out of service, and they have no idea what they're going to do, where they're going to lay their head at night, where they're going to get the next paycheck so they can put food in their stomach and
Right.
have something over their head. And I was very fortunate that I worked with a lot of nonprofits in San Diego that did amazing things. Uh, I had one, uh, Vet CTAP. Once I went to the transition seminar twice and was just extremely lost and confused and didn't know. I went to that program, and I still to this day tell you it is the best transition program I've ever been a part of. Uh, I've got one person I mentored yesterday, and he's part of that program right now. And so I told him to ask a couple questions last night uh, and get some laughs when Janice and Betsy would go back there. It's like, yeah, Bruce, we remember him. But it's been 5 years or so since I went to that program. I still
Mhm.
talk to them on a weekly basis as far as uh, can I help someone that they're working with, or just there's something that's like, yeah, this would be great for them to know and include. And it just started because I happened to go to their you know um, 4 week seminar, and it was 4 weeks, which 2 meetings a night from 6 to 9. So it wasn't like I got out of work or anything. It was after work,
Right.
you know, and not only was it 3 to 4 hours a night, but it was the homework that went with it. It was the
Oh.
study, So like I tell everybody, if you commit to something, you have to commit to something.
Mhm.
Uh, Otherwise, you're stealing opportunities from someone else and you're wasting people's time.
I
And
think that's powerful what you just said, that you have to commit fully. Otherwise, you're stealing other people's time and opportunities. That's so, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that was just very profound. One of the other things I wanted to kind of interject and say is when you were talking about who you were personally and professionally, you said, you wanted to become a pillar in the community once you gotten settled on, that's what you learned on this path, and that you wanted to become rooted in the community to help other veterans because a lot of veterans struggle with transitioning. And the key to that is connection and community. And I heard you say, because a lot of us, a lot of veterans encounter the PTSD or the trouble transitioning, and we kind of isolate ourselves. But you said the key to that is connection, and how your wife kind of pulled you up out of that. And you've had the six-figure income, and it just wasn't fulfilling, it wasn't satisfying because you had the money, but that's not your compass. Your compass is family. You're family focused, and that's how you've been able to incorporate the personal and the professional. And so I just wanted to really kind of bring that out. That was something that really resonated with me, and what I know to be true of you, and how embedded you are in the veteran community to helping other veterans reintegrate successfully. And so, for any veteran that's tuning in, and you have been isolating, or you don't know where to begin on the journey to reintegrating, Bruce Thompson is the man that you want to know. So I just kind of wanted to share that, those insights before I forgot, you know, due to my, challenges, both military and post-military related. So thank you so much again, Bruce, for all that you continue to do in service of others while you are still tending to yourself and your own, challenges. So I commend you for being so selfless in what you do.
yeah, it's
Go ahead.
just something that I think most veterans find it natural. You
Mhm.
know, we spent somewhere between 4 and 40 years serving, and just because a contract expires doesn't mean all of a sudden we're done.
Mhm.
Okay, more service, and it's built up into us. And I came up. My father was the one who raised us, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents on dad and mom's side. And it was kind of built in that you know take care of family, build around family, and you know be of service to others. And then of
Mhm.
course you join the service, and then they pound that into your head a little bit further. It's no longer me, myself. It's we, the team, the platoon, the squad. It, it gives you a different perspective on life. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, and when we first get out, a lot of us have you know we miss that sense of community, that sense of belonging.
Mhm.
And for some, that can be devastating. You have people that have been in service for, you know, 15, 30 years, and all of a sudden they take off that uniform and they're like, who am I without this uniform?
Exactly.
Uh, myself, I spent a lot of times on independent duty with the Marine Corps, which meant I trained selective Marine Corps Reserve units. So by doing that one, it really brought you back into more of uh, the community, interacting with more people that were not military, that didn't even know that military was in that area, and that kept me, kind of connected and humbled, and not trying to, beat my own chest, be like, look at me. Uh, unless you get me on a sports field, and then it's different. Uh, but
Well, I know nothing about sports, so
don't worry, I'm too broken to do any of it anyway. So that was a past chapter that has been closed.
gotcha.
But it just kept that sense. So when I was going places, I still had those different connections. I had those, um, public relations kind of interactions where, you know, the typical Marine, you know, mean mugging face, we break out our knife hands, and we talk in a very distinct manner does not work. Uh,
Mhm.
so you had to adapt to those things. And although I tell you, I don't wish independent duty on anybody, especially not 3 times for almost
Right.
10 years. There's a lot that I learned through those experiences. And it, it was wonderful because I got to do so many community events, things that most people will never do. Uh, and it, and you can't say anything about it, but I'm thankful for the experiences. Uh,
So
you know,
what have you learned through from those experiences that have helped you in what you're doing today? Not just, professionally, but in all aspects of your life. What were some of the nuggets or the insights that you've learned from those experiences that help you to help um, other veterans?
well, the first one is you're never better than anyone else. You're never lesser than anybody else. You're just you. We all we all have our role to play. You never know. You could just walk by somebody and ask how their day was, and actually wait to hear the response, not just "Hey, how are you?" as you were like 5 feet past them, then, because you don't know if that one person is having the worst day of their life, where they might be one of those 22 veterans a day. And I hate the number
Right.
22. It's misleading. It's wrong. The number is way higher. But
I agree.
we have states that don't report, uh,
Right.
military and veteran suicides separately from suicides.
Hmm.
So you never know when that one thing's going to happen. That one thing that can change their life. And I was at the VA had a seminar, um, and you were there with me. You know,
Yes,
and
I was
that speaker talked to everything that was happening,
there.
and
Hmm.
he came through. He said, if just one person had reached out to him,
Yes.
it would have changed. He wouldn't have gone through with the attempt that day.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's just, you know, wow. So someone just coming up, and didn't matter who it was, just someone coming up and having a short exchange. It could have just been as simple as, hey, I see you're by yourself.
Yeah.
So do I. You want to get this little tour together. It could have been, how are you doing, and actually listening uh, to hear the response.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we greatly lack. You know, um, communication skills. They don't get enough emphasis. They don't get taught. Most of us, you know, we listen to respond, but very few of us actually listen
Listen.
to hear.
Yeah.
and that makes all the difference. Some people, uh, you want to make sure you hear them, because it's not about what they say. Sometimes it's just about how they're saying it. You know,
Mhm.
those will be the tells that lead us to say, "Oh, I need to keep this conversation going. I feel something's amiss."
Mhm.
And, and like I say, it's a difference between uh, the sexes a lot. So men, we listen to like the first 5 seconds or so, and then we're talking about how we can fix it because we're
Right.
fixers. That's what we're trained to do. That's what we're going to go through.
You're solution focused.
And females are more on the I just want to be heard.
Mhm.
So they're not looking for you to fix them, not looking for you to give an answer. They want you to give of your time and listen to what they have to say. And I'm guilty of the listening to respond to react. As I've gotten older, some will say wiser. I'll just say older. Uh, I've really spent more time developing that active listening skill
Yeah.
and realizing when someone just needs to vent.
Mhm.
I I've had phone calls where I sat there for 45 minutes plus, and it was just listening to someone who needed to vent. You
Yeah.
know, and hey, that you got my number, you called me. I felt that there was that something that needed to be said, and I sat there quietly and listened. And I took some notes. So whenever said was done, I had some. Hey, here are some resources that might be of assistance to you. You know, and you have my number. If you need to call again, you call again. You know, and I think that's important, and it's lacking. Everybody's in a hurry nowadays. You know, we joke about that New York minute, which is like a second. Yeah, and between always being connected, tell someone to leave their phone behind, and you're going to see people like flip out,
Yeah.
like can't do it.
I think you said something that was very key, Bruce. You said that people, honestly, I think there's three basic needs for people, whether they will admit to it or not. And the first one is to give and receive love. The second one is to be seen. And the third one is to be heard. And with everything that we have going on in society now, the ever evolving technology, um, people not really being aware of others or only listening to respond, but not listening to really hear and understand. What you brought out was very profound because I think honestly that was one of the reasons why I was drawn to you because, I have people say all the time, you're such a excellent listener. You always seem to be tuned in. You're so, present. And I do that because I know what I've experienced, in the military and post military. And I don't ever want someone to feel like that. And you have that same passion and that same heart. And so with the way our society is now and the challenges that we have now with the pandemics, the concurrent pandemics, the racial tensions and the racial disparities and the racial disconnect and all of that, and the pandemic of the COVID, how has that impacted the communities that you serve, and how has it impacted how you serve those veterans so that they don't end up becoming a statistic? And I do agree that it is much higher than the 22 a day that the statistics indicate.
So me personally, I used to be that person that you'd find at almost every event. If it
Mhm.
had something to do with the military community, the veteran community, and here in Jacksonville, Florida, one out of every four citizens in Duval County, is connected to the military or to the veteran communities. So
Right.
huge population here. We've got three naval bases. We've got a couple Marine Corps units. I think two or three Coast Guard units. The Army Reserve has a huge uh, camp, just about 25, 30 miles south of us. And Air Force is here. You name it, we cover all the services. And they're all varied because each service has its own role. They have different programs, different services. So I went from being at all these events in person to everything got shut down where there was no events happening.
Hmm.
So we work with different groups to make those events virtual, to not stop and lock the door, close the windows, and and keep the lights off and just you know go to like mental pause for 6 months. No, we was there's veterans out there that need to be heard. There are service members that need to be heard. There's spouses out there. There's dependent children out there. We have all these people that still need to be served. How can we serve them? And
Mm-hmm.
so I did a lot of that went virtually. One of the big things that has come out of this is with my famous blue shirt here, vets to industry. We have a huge resource library. There's over 40,000 military nonprofits. Everybody has their own thing. No one has a list of all of them because it changes so much each day. They show up, they go away, they merge.
Mm-hmm.
But we got a team that goes out there and manages the resources, adds to them, validates that they're still current. If they're not, they take them off, and that's great. That's what Vets to Industry was set upon. That fact is that resource library. It's free. So as we got into this, COVID lockdown, it was the conversation, and Brian Arrington is uh, amazing. Uh, and we started doing this every third Saturday. We have this huge virtual networking event, and it brings
Mm-hmm.
everybody together. It talks about their stories. It puts them with recruiters, and it's that huge connection of helping people get employed. So that's been a huge part of it. Uh, when it comes down to, you know, I took my uniform off that day. My rank came off. I took it off at the end of my retirement ceremony. I've
Mm-hmm.
never put it back on. I don't refer to myself by my military rank. I'm Bruce. If you call me Mr. Thompson, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really work for me.
Right.
I'm just Bruce.
Bruce
You
Batman.
I,
Okay,
I
Batman.
I haven't had a haircut since COVID, so if you see my profile picture on LinkedIn, yes, it's me. No hair, clean shaven, in a suit. Uh, but that's part of the COVID change,
Right.
and this is my relaxed and uh, you know, you know, hashtag uh, team team um, uh, beers, and I forget what it is, and they'll beat me up for it later if anyone sees it. Uh, but it's just a bunch of us who kind of let them grow. Just be comfortable who you are, and that's what it comes down to is how can you be comfortable? How can you go
Mm-hmm.
out there and be you, but in a helpful manner? You
Mm.
know, we all have skills. We all have something that we bring to the table. Let's figure out how your skills line up and what we can do with them. I've seen a lot of people that when they transition, it is almost impossible for them to take off the rank.
Mm.
Again, that some individuals have spent so much time in service that they don't know anything other. Because let's
Right.
remember a very key fact: most people that enlist, we enlist straight out of high school. We're 17 or 18 years old. You live back in my time. There was no internet. No cell phones. No. Uh, Heck, I say I was even like a little bit, uh, and I'm really dating myself when I say pagers. That was some of the things we had. So as we went back through and you did that, others, you know, officers went to college. They were 22 to 24 when they joined. Again, and they've done this their entire adult lives. That that's a culture shock in and of itself. And we've been in the military. We don't know the language. We don't know all the rules. We
We
got
sure.
used to being, you know, this is what we do, and you know, first names, Marines. We don't know anybody's first name.
Right.
All we know is Thompson, Marine Corps. Or so and so Navy, so and so Army, and it gets to that point where when people start calling you by your first name, you're kind of like, what's going on? Because even when we get together outside of work, for the most part, we still, call each other by our last names, and we don't think anything of it. People are like, hey, what's your friend's name? Oh, that's Jones. No, no,
So
what's
say
his
this,
first name? Like, I don't know.
let me just say this. If you ever call me by my last name, know that I will not respond. Caveat. Let me just put that out there.
and, and I'll tell you, uh, I'll respond, but I'll respond with that look of like, why you use my last name?
Right.
It,
That's who
you
I
know,
was,
it,
who I am. It's what I did.
and and that's how I look at it. You know, and I find that I'm one of those the smaller percentage that take the rank off and have thought about and have planned for it. So it becomes a real hardship for
So
those that don't understand what they want to do next.
So with that being said, that's a perfect segue into, what I wanted to ask you next, which is what would you say to someone, to that veteran or soon to be veteran who is struggling to find purpose and meaning, in their life after their service? If they're like in that, what would you say to that person if they're tuning in now and they're like straddling the fence? Like, what do I do? How do I reinvent myself? What would you say?
Well, first, you're not alone. There's a lot of us out there. I'll
Mhm.
be honest, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but I'm okay with that because
Right.
I'm a Toys R Us kid. I'm never growing up.
I was
Uh,
about to say, growing up is overrated.
right. Uh, but it's when I go back through and we got to talk about the situation. Where are you currently at? Do you have a roof over your head? Do you have a job and you're looking to improve on it, or are you in the struggles where you're either homeless or close to being homeless, unemployed, and don't know where anything's going? It feels like everything's crashing down on top of you because
Mhm.
that's a very scary place to be. And I was there, early in my military career because they
Right.
don't financial management very well. uh,
Financial. Yeah.
so you're not alone. I probably talk to 50% of the people I talk to on Veterati don't know what they want to do next.
Hmm.
They they're like, this is what I've done. I'm like, but is it what you want to do?
Right.
And it's like, what? Like I have an option? They're like, yeah, we have an option finally. That's why we get out so we can choose. I ask them, what do you plan on living? Once you get out. Well, I'm like, no one's going to call and say, hey, Bruce, now that you're a civilian, I need you to relocate to so and so. It doesn't happen. So you have to do that self assessment, and that's
Mhm.
where we have to be very honest with ourselves. Uh, it's not there's a right answer or a wrong answer. It's what is your answer. Like I said, I retired. We stayed in Southern California for a year. But at that 6 month mark, I told Neil, I'm like, hey, our lease is up in 6 months, and we're not going to be here when it's after that. And
Mhm.
that's when we picked a spot, we did our research, and we made the plan. That's something that a lot of people fail to do is make a plan, to be honest with themselves.
Mhm.
My retirement was based off the kids being out the house and being debt free.
Yeah.
And trust me, I was counting down that day. That's why I did. That's why I did almost 24.
Right.
I think I'm like 3 months shy of 24. But that extra 3 months and to be able to eclipse that 24-year mark where I would have got like an extra $3 or $4 a check, it
Right.
wasn't worth it. I was done. So,
Mhm.
that's when people are like, why did you get out, so close to? I'm like, in the reality, it just doesn't make that much of a difference.
Right.
So, I tell people, we got to do a values assessment. Uh, and, and I'll tell you, I was guilty of not doing this. Uh, you know, in the what color is my parachute? It's called the flower exercise. So here I am at this this vet CTAP, Marine Master Sergeant with 22, 23 years of service in. You're like, do the flower exercise. And I'm like, flower exercise. What is that about? That's
Right.
not for me. Had I done that flower exercise, I never would have taken that first job.
Hmm.
I would have had a better sense of who I am. And I remember, calling Betsy up and saying, I get it now. I
Got
didn't
it.
get it when we're in the classroom, but because I failed, I quickly understood where I failed and why I failed. I
So
let
what is the flower exercise for those that might not know what that is?
so it's a part of what Coach Your Parachute, and you go through all the pedals, and you talk about family, you know types of employment, locations, different companies. So it's going back and it's asking all those kind of questions that you need to make a decision,
Hmm.
and it's putting it in what is the uh, for you, what is that primary order? You know,
Mm.
so for me, I said it was family, uh, location. It was about a medium. I knew where we didn't want to be, but
Hmm.
it wasn't like we had that. We're moving back home because there was never one place that we called home. You know, we just used moving around, and the place we were raised. My parents got up and moved like 10 years before I retired. They're like Southern California desert. It's too hot. It's too expensive. They moved to Bristol, Tennessee area, and so most of my family's here on the East Coast. But I've been in Southern California since I was 8 years old. We're talking 30 plus years.
Hmm.
Uh, I didn't think about any of that, but I was smart enough to put myself in a range where people have to call, and you can't just stop in. So we still got that family separation, but we
Hmm.
are the place where if you're going to Disney, uh, you stop at on your way down, or you stop on your way back home. So we kind of get that. But those are those things that you have to understand. And it talks about, do you want to work inside, outside, combination? You want to work with your hands? Do you want to work more with your mind? What do you kind of prefer as far as types of work? And it just really goes in there and it clarifies things for you. As long as you're being honest with yourself, and a lot of us have that problem of we don't know how to, or we are afraid of, even though it's just you're talking to yourself, you're answering these questions, uh, and it gives you that better idea. So it's there's plenty of little tricks and tools, and our favorite word, apps. Uh, so
Right.
it's all out there. It's just a matter of how do you find it. And
What do you think? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
oh no, we're good.
Yeah. What do you think, in your own opinion, the thing is that people are most afraid of when not wanting to be self-aware or aware of themselves? What do you think it is that they fear the most that they're going to discover that prevents them from wanting
They
to dig deeper?
they might discover that they don't like who they are.
Mm.
Uh, you know, it, we're put in a certain box, and we're expected to, um, shut up and color. And there's all kinds of different ones, and there's things that you're like, this is wrong. What can I do to change it? And there's so many things that you're like, I don't have control. I don't have the ability. And there are natural leaders. There are natural followers. And it doesn't mean you're right or wrong either way. It just means that's kind of where you fall into. And that's
Hmm.
fine as long as you understand that. So you have a lot of people because they're in uniform and they have a certain rank that they've achieved. All of a sudden, they're like, I'm a leader. No, there could be someone who is a E1 that is a great leader, and someone who's senior enlisted, senior officer that don't have that ability, you know, and that's and that's scary to think of. You know,
Hmm.
we go in, we have this rank, we have this prestige, and then you're leaving, you're like, oh, you know, were you kind of carried and people uh, took care of you because they did the work and you were just there? And these are things that people have to come away with. Uh, what do I really know? Uh,
Hmm.
Someone like me, like I said, I did independent duty for 9.5 years. I will tell you, those 9.5 years, I learned things that uh, I never thought I would in the military. I was
Hmm.
in communications. I fixed electronics devices. I did maintenance management. Uh, well, I was over there and I was doing security clearances as an additional duty. So I was doing the fingerprinting uh, and yes, it was prior to having the electronic version. So I
Right.
made sure to get you nice and
Inked
messy.
up.
You know, so I didn't think I'd be doing that one. I didn't think I'd be processing people's clearance requests and having to suspend them or remove them because of abuse and different issues they had that violated certain principles.
Right.
I ran the government travel charge card program for a battalion where I had two companies with me on site, another company in Salt Lake City, and then four companies up and down the East Coast. I'm calm. I don't deal with credit cards and the budget and we have this, we do have that. I'm like, you know, it, and people would call me from the airport and be like, "Hey, my credit card's not working." I'm like, "Are you traveling?" Like,
Right.
you came and saw me like we tell you to. But I was able to quickly, hey, so and so's traveling, look it up, make the phone call, turn their cards on. And these are things that had I not been on independent duty, I never would have known, which made me very, very dangerous when I got back to a fleet unit because people weren't able to just uh, mislead you on certain topics because I've been there and done it, and that made it uh, a great lesson. But let me tell you, it's not something I'm volunteering to do again.
Yeah.
And I didn't
Yeah.
volunteer to do it the first time either. So, so
So
you got things like that.
with all of the on this journey called life, and I believe a Marine's journey is a particularly different one than anyone else's, because the Marine Corps is just a whole different species, I think, in and of itself from the rest of the branches of service. And with all the pitfalls that you've encountered along the way and how you've adapted and overcome and have kind of incorporated and molded that into what you do to serve others. What is your vision, personally and professionally, for Bruce going forward and AKA Batman going forward, and how you want to continue to show up in service for others, but also in your life and how you even serve yourself? What does that vision look like going forward?
So I was involved in a lot of different groups, organizations, and so uh, I've had a couple roles that have come up that require me to have more time. So what I'm
Hmm.
looking to do, and I've been doing some of it recently, is stepping back from some of those um, groups that may not have the impact I'm looking for them to have. Uh,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean I'm not supporting them. It just means uh, I'm an advisor and supporter, vice being part of the member who's making things happen day in day out.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm getting myself, together with, organizations like Vets to Industry. I'm a 4 block instructor here, a brand new virtual Jacks platform. I'm part of, the Veterati, where you look at my calendar. If I have openings, you hop on. You know, there's a project coming up that we're hoping shortly after Veterans Day we can make the announcement. So that's my little tease. You got to figure out, what the announcement's going to be, after Veterans Day. But it's looking good. Like we're going to actually have it, and that's going to be an amazing add to the community. Uh, And with those things, you always have to have your eye on that. Where do I want to get? It's always
Mhm.
it's hey, I'm here right now. In 5, 10 years, this is where I want to be. And we got to do that reverse engineering. You know, hey, if I'm a first line supervisor and I want to be the CEO, well, there's a gap there. We got to figure out how to close that, and it means okay, well, to get that, I have to be a manager. Okay, I got to be a department head. Hey, I've got to be uh, one of the C-level uh, positions that will place me into that. And so
Mhm.
we got to take all those back. What gap analysis? You know, you hear me say it too many because too many of us look for employment and say, hey, look, I'd be perfect for that. I'm like, okay, but are you qualified? You know,
Well,
and you see, oh, they want a degree. You don't have a degree, but will they look at experience over degree? Can you get on and be working towards something? These are all those things you got to figure out so you can close those gaps and get to where you want to be. I'm a firm
mhm.
believer. We can get to where we want to be. You know, realistic goals. I'm sorry, I'm never going to be the point guard for Los Angeles Lakers. These are
You
gone.
say
I'm sure it is what it is. It's something I got to live with. Uh, but you know, we can all be CEOs. We can
mhm,
all you know go out there and make our impact, make our difference. And I'll tell you, that's where I want to be.
mhm.
As I move forward, I want to be that person that people uh, talk about when I'm not around as, oh, that's someone who has shown up, has made a difference, and has impacted the community. But more important, I want to be able to say that I impacted individuals.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people who go out there and they'll do something for the community, but they never get kneecap to kneecap with you. You
Right.
know, I want to make that impact, but I want to be kneecap to kneecap with you. I want to give that hug. Yes, I still hug, I still shake hands, and I wear
Me
my mask when I have to. Uh, I'm not. Uh, it, it, I can't wait to get into the new year and kind of get past the COVID and figure out what's going on and going back in. America right now is we're we're at that point where we're one or the other. Too many people are hating on each other. Too many people just don't respect much of anything.
right.
Uh, you know, it, and this isn't a Democrat or a Republican thing. This isn't a black, white, uh, you know, any other race issue. Because we watch the rallies, when you see what's going on, it's multiple races are together. Whether that's uh, for something, against something. So uh, I don't look at the diversity of it because there's diverse crowds that are doing it on both
Right.
sides. It's a matter of we got to get back to that. You know, grandma and grandpa taught us. Uh, and that golden rule: treat others like you want to be treated yourself. And
Right.
it's yes, you have to think of yourself and your family, but at the same time, it can't be you get everything and everyone around you gets nothing. You
Right.
know,
Well, I
and
definitely agree with that. Yeah, I agree with
and,
that.
and that's
Um,
why we're such good friends is because we have a lot of similar beliefs and we're both out there using our voices, using our knowledge, skills, abilities to invoke change and to bring people together in the right manner. So
well, I believe that we are more alike than we are different if we would just give ourselves the opportunity to look beyond
right,
the surface. And so that's what I always love about you, Bruce, because you look beyond the surface. You just see people. You don't see color. You don't see nationality. You don't see culture. You just see people. And that's ultimately what I pray and hope we get back to as a community and as a society and as a nation. And so, what I wanted you to share with our audience, our time is wrapping up here soon, is What has been or is one of your most defining moments, and what is a takeaway that someone can take away today and a call to action?
Well, I think one of the defining moments is when I made the commitment to focus on volunteering and helping others, and not, I want to go get this big paycheck, or I want to have this position of influence, or no, not influence, because we can all influence no matter where we're at, but worry about a title. I could write off some titles I have. They ain't paying me nothing, but I got a title. So I think we get wrapped up in some of that, and just being authentic, um, and, and just giving. I think those are some of those defining moments for me.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd hope people take away from, uh, this conversation, which can go for about 5 more hours. Let's just be honest with
Right,
us.
right.
When you don't have short conversations,
We don't.
uh, it's the takeaway of every single one of us can make a powerful impact. You know, you have to figure out what it is that you bring that's different, that's unique from others, and you know how you can partner, or uh, find that spot that brings that out. And you know it helps with the inclusion. It helps, bring a community together. It helps somebody who was down and out, say, not me, I'm going to live another day. And and that's what we have to do.
Hmm.
And so my call to action is learn to communicate better, and go out there and put your talents, your special, the things that make you special, make you who you are. Put those out there, so you can be emulated, that you can get something started. You know, I'm here, it's at Jacksonville, Florida. We're that mid-sized town, uh, probably the biggest small town you ever go to.
Right.
But
Agree.
I've got a great buddy here, uh, Katie Corbett. She's running the Our Sisters Keepers movement, which is going out and making it okay to talk about military sexual trauma, sexual
Yeah.
abuse, sexual assault. And she's someone who's been on the edge of becoming a statistic. She's got back up, and we all have our ups and downs. No one's
Yeah.
perfect, but now she's leading a nationwide uh, movement, and they've got bills, you know, at NDC being talked about, being, can we put these into law? And not just a bill. I mean, there's multiple bills coming back through that's getting support. Um, the whole Fort Hood and whatever's going on in that area that's got too many people going missing and dying, uh, it caused a commanding officer to be relieved for cause. That
Yeah.
is a big deal. The investigations are coming in there, and not local investigations. We're talking federal investigations are coming in there to figure out what's happening. One person, one event set this off, and
Yes.
we're all, and luckily, we're in the modern age of the computer and everything else, where we virtually were able to talk to each other and come up with, look at us, we can do this. And there's been coordinated protests across 20 plus different locations. It's going back in and giving uh, those people who are still in the victim stage an opportunity to see people who have gone from victim to survivor, and
Hmm.
help them along their path. You know, it it's something that's so small, but wow, did it grow to something? And when I
Yeah.
say so small, I'm not talking, MST is so small. No, I'm talking, it was a conversation that led to a couple other conversations, which led to a movement, which is moving into, hopefully, laws being changed on how military sexual trauma is dealt with moving forward. So that could be me and you having a conversation. That could be anybody who's watching, listening in. have a conversation. You have to put, your power together and
Yeah,
make it happen. We can't just sit back on the sidelines. We
exactly.
see we see things that need to be changed. We have to be active. We have to take a stand, and we have to fight for what we believe in.
Well, I publicly want to say to Katie Chorbeck that I'm totally grateful and thankful for her being so courageous to take that on. I myself being a survivor of military sexual trauma, I am grateful for her voice in the action that she chose to take, and I'm thankful, that we're all connected, to one another in our own perspective, what we've decided to put our voice to. So I'm thankful for Katie, and I'm thankful for you, Bruce, for taking the time to come on and share with you a Marine's journey and your insights um, on life, and how, as veterans, we can reintegrate successfully back into our surrounding communities and use our gifts and talents even beyond our service, in spite of the personal challenges and struggles that we might have. And so I'm grateful for the time that you shared with me today and my listening audience. I wanted to kind of share a little bit of the things that I took away from today, um, that kind of resonated and stood out with me for those that are tuning in, is to, when you commit to something, commit fully. And if you're not going to commit to it fully, move out of the way to allow somebody else to, because you're stealing somebody else's opportunity. That was really profound to me. And the other thing that you said was to learn to communicate more effectively, um, and then being able to use your gifts for the greater good. And then the final thing that really resonated with me was, we all have a role to play. So play the role, and you're no better and no less than anyone else. Just fulfill the role that you've been called to fulfill. And so I don't know about anybody else, but I took away a lot from today. You've inspired me to continue to raise my voice and champion the causes of those that don't have a voice, and continue to lock arms and link arms with my fellow um, clarion callers. I'll label us that way. And so I'm grateful and thankful for the insight that you've shared today, Bruce. Are there any parting thoughts that you want to leave, the listening audience with?
I I just hope that something I said resonates with you, inspires you to research or to think about something from a different point of view. And
Mhm.
it's a lot of times, we get this polarized world where we only see what we see. We have this blinders on. Well, we're missing a lot when we have our blinders on. So if we can take those off and try to understand different points of view, that'll go a long way for us being able to communicate. Uh, and I mean, it's amazing that you can't really have a conversation right now because so many people are like, if you don't believe what I believe, you're out. I'm like,
Right,
no, that's not how it is. So be open to hearing opinions. You know, uh, there's just so much out there that we have to fix right now, and
right,
this isn't the America that I grew up in, that I was raised to believe in, and I just think we need things that the government's not solving anything. It's
right,
individuals. It's those of us who live in the community that are doing things in our community. We don't need to wait for someone to give us permission or to you know take pity on us or whatever you want to call it. We can get up as a community and solve so many of our own problems. Uh, and like I tell people, you sit down and have a meal with somebody, you really get a chance to know somebody.
right.
So don't be afraid to just have a conversation over uh, lunch. You know, maybe you're like me and you'll talk to anybody, so it's no big deal. But some of y'all that's having to break out of a shell
For
that
sure.
you live in.
Yeah,
So if do something that scares you every now and then, and I don't mean something deadly and crazy. I just have a conversation with someone who doesn't look like you.
yeah,
Uh, you know, go volunteer some time and figure out, oh, yeah, this really is manual labor,
yeah.
but it's going to a worthy cause. Find something and believe in it and commit.
Right. So again, commit fully. So
I'm all
I
about commit. That's how we get things done.
Right. I thank you for sharing with us today. You know, you said something as well when you said we all have a role to play. It reminded me of something that one of my other mentors, says all the time, Dr. Showalter Johnson. He says, in order for us to become fully integrated, which is what we were created to do, you have to not be afraid of being you. And one of his questions that he always states is, when will it be okay for you to be you? And I think you've really embraced that, Bruce. It's okay for you to be you, and you're good with that. And so again, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing with us today and giving our listening audience, especially our veterans that are struggling, some insights on how they can reintegrate. And for those of you that want to connect with, I implore you to connect with Bruce, especially if you're challenged in transitioning from the military to civilian service again. His information is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Um, Connect with him on LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn and you want to know how to connect with him, inbox me. On Facebook, you guys know how to find me. Michelle Speaks with a Z. And again, thank you so much, Bruce, for sharing with us today. And so that until the next time that we meet, thank you so much for tuning in to Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. You all continue to have a wonderful day. Take care, be well, and God bless.